I learned a secret endurance technique from Hormozi that helped me work over 12 hours a day, build unstoppable mental stamina, and triple my productivity. Over the years, I've tried hundreds of productivity methods, but none of them helped me as much as this. It all started when I studied Hormozi's daily routine and discovered that ultra successful entrepreneurs have a strangely different approach to sustained work than the rest of us. While most people burn out after 4 to 6 hours of work, Hormozi consistently operates at peak performance for 12 plus hours daily. And after analyzing his methods, I learned his simple endurance technique that anyone can implement into their work routine. And the best part is, you don't need any fancy apps, expensive supplements, or complicated systems. You just need to understand how elite performers structure their energy. So Hormozi's endurance strategy is based on something he calls endurance mindset. And it's literally the simplest but also the most effective way to sustain peak performance for extended periods. Working over 12 hours a day isn't easy to do, partly because our energy habits have been ingrained into our daily routine. And the simple act of pushing through fatigue ties into mental barriers that are really difficult to overcome. But this technique has been battle tested by Alex himself to build multiple 8-figure companies, and for the past few years, it's been quietly transforming how high performers approach sustained work. So the way it works is quite simple, but you first of all need to understand why most people crash after just a few hours of focused work. You see, the most successful people aren't more talented. They simply keep hammering while others stop. As Hormozi says,
I cannot lose if I do not quit. I could choose not to quit.
But what separates those who can sustain effort from those who burn out isn't willpower or motivation. It's about managing brain chemistry and structuring your energy so effort feels natural instead of exhausting. You see, most people can't focus for long because their brains are wired to seek comfort. Think about your typical day. You wake up in a climate-controlled room, grab your phone for instant entertainment, eat whenever you feel hungry, and avoid any form of discomfort. There's a chemical in your brain that you've probably heard of called dopamine that controls whether you feel motivated to do something or whether it feels like torture. Dopamine isn't actually the pleasure chemical like most people think. It's more like your brain's motivation system. And when dopamine levels are high, tasks feel engaging and rewarding. But when they're low, the same exact tasks will feel boring and difficult. Think of dopamine like the fuel gauge in your car. When the tank is full, driving feels effortless. When it's empty though, every mile feels like a struggle. Your brainwave works in the exact same way with motivation and focus. Your brain is constantly trying to maintain balance. It's like a sophisticated accounting system that tracks pleasure and pain. When you experience something pleasurable, your brain automatically creates an equal and opposite reaction to bring you back to baseline. And the thing is that your brain adapts to the constant hits. It's like developing a tolerance to a drug. You need more and more stimulation to feel the same level of satisfaction. Meanwhile, activities that used to feel rewarding, like focused work, reading, or having meaningful conversations, start to feel boring by comparison. However, high performers like Hormozi understand that this system can be reset. Because when you deliberately expose yourself to mild discomfort and delay gratification, you're essentially recalibrating your brain's reward system. Think of it like this. If you've been eating candy all day, an apple won't taste all that good. But if you haven't eaten anything sweet for a week, that same apple will taste incredibly satisfying. You see, controlled discomfort resets dopamine levels and strengthens what scientists call frustration tolerance. Your brain learns that discomfort is temporary and manageable and not something to avoid at all costs. Dr. Anna Lemke at Stanford had people practice deliberate discomfort. Things like cold showers, skipping meals, and intense exercise. After just 2 weeks, these same people reported feeling more motivated and could sustain difficult work. This happened because their brains had literally rewired to find satisfaction in effort instead of constantly seeking comfort. Another researcher named Colton studied people who exercised regularly and discovered something fascinating. These individuals could tolerate 20 to 40% more physical discomfort than sedentary people. But the crazy thing is that the pain tolerance of those people transferred to mental tasks as well. They needed less mental effort to stay concentrated for long periods. When analyzing Hormozi's work habits, it's clear he structures his day around doing hard things first and minimizing comfort. He trains consistently and uses physical intensity as a way to build the same endurance he applies to long work sessions. Now, the insight here isn't copying his exact schedule, but adopting the main principle, which is start your day with controlled effort, so everything afterward feels easier. And to do this, you have to implement something called pain tolerance protocol. And the way it works is, first, you do morning exercise for 30 to 45 minutes of either strength training or zone 2 cardio. This boosts your dopamine levels and norepinephrine for hours, creating a neurochemical foundation for sustained focus. Then the other component of the protocol is to practice intermittent fasting by delaying your first meal 3 to 5 hours after waking. This heightens focus and self-control by increasing adrenaline, while also training your brain to function well despite mild discomfort. Then begin to end your showers with 1 to 2 minutes of cold water. This trains your brain to stay calm under stress, building the same mental resilience needed for difficult work. As a result of this protocol, instead of avoiding discomfort and constantly seeking easy dopamine hits, you start building the capacity to find satisfaction in sustained difficult work. And then the boring work becomes your competitive advantage. But when I dug deeper into how Hormozi actually structures his 12-hour days, I found something surprising. He's not grinding harder, but instead he's working completely differently. And most entrepreneurs have this backwards. They think success comes from working longer hours, so they grind from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. and wonder why they're exhausted but not getting ahead. You've probably felt this yourself. You work all day, but at the end, you can't point to anything meaningful you actually achieved. You were busy, but definitely not productive. The problem is that your brain doesn't work like a machine that can run at full capacity for 12 straight hours. When you push through fatigue and recovery, your cognitive performance degrades rapidly. You see, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for complex thinking and decision making, starts running low on glucose. Stress hormones like cortisol start building up, and your ability to focus, make good decisions, and think creatively starts to plummet. What feels like productive grinding is in reality making you less efficient. You're taking twice as long to do work that should take you half the time. But when you align your work with your brain's natural energy cycles, you can maintain peak cognitive performance for much longer periods. Research shows that your brain operates in roughly 90-minute cycles of high focus followed by natural recovery periods. And it's something called ultradian cycles. When you leverage these cycles, you can sustain high-quality output for hours on end. A researcher named Nathaniel Clayton spent years studying how attention works throughout the day, and he discovered that mental performance drops significantly after about 90 minutes of continuous effort without rest. This clearly shows that your brain needs recovery periods to maintain peak function. Another study tracked real workplace decisions throughout entire workdays, and the researchers found that after just 3 hours of continuous work without rest resulted in people's decision-making accuracy to drop by 20%. That meant that they were making worse choices and taking longer to complete their tasks. But the people who took regular recovery breaks maintained their performance throughout long days. And when I analyzed Hormozi's work habits, I saw that he doesn't just grind continuously. He actually alternates between periods of intense focus and complete mental recovery. This allows him to maintain high cognitive speed across long work days without the typical afternoon crash. And Hormozi actually makes this happen with an approach that comes from one of his favorite formulas, which is output equals volume times leverage, meaning that working more hours, volume, doesn't mean getting more done, but instead it's about getting more done from each hour you work, which is leverage. Most people only focus on the volume side of the equation. They think if they work 12 hours instead of 8, they'll get 50% more done. But that's not how your brain works. Volume is just the raw amount of time you spend working. Leverage is what multiplies the value of that time. When you have high leverage, 1 hour of work can produce results that would normally take 3 hours. The problem is that when you increase volume without leverage, you actually decrease your overall output. Your brain gets fatigued, your decision making gets worse, and you're taking longer to complete tasks that should be simple. But when you focus on leverage first, structuring your energy properly, and eliminating inefficiencies, you can maintain high quality output for much longer periods. And that's exactly why Hormozi can easily focus for 12 plus hours a day and still be sharp by the end of the day, while most people are mentally exhausted after just 4 hours of work. It's because he has learned how to maximize the leverage side of the equation. To do the same thing yourself, you first need to schedule your most cognitively demanding work during your natural peak hours. And these are typically the first 4 to 6 hours of your day when your cortisol and your alertness is at their highest. This is when your brain is primed for complex thinking, strategic planning, and creative problem solving. Then you structure this work in 90-minute focused blocks. During these blocks, you work on a single task with complete focus. No email, no phone, no distractions. Just deep concentrated effort on your most important work. After each 90-minute block, you take about 15 to 20 minutes of complete mental recovery. And no, I'm not talking about scrolling on social media or checking your messages, because that's still cognitive load and stimulation. Instead, do some light stretching, walk outside, walk around the house, practice breathing, or simply sit quietly without any input. And finally, you end each workday by spending 10 minutes planning tomorrow's top 3 priorities. Write them down specifically. Not vague goals like work on marketing, but concrete, tangible tasks like write 2 email sequences for the next product launch, so that when it's time to start work the next day, you can immediately get into focus mode instead of wasting mental energy figuring out what to do. As a result, instead of grinding through 12 hours of mediocre work, you accomplish more stuff in strategically timed blocks, meaning that your energy goes towards high leverage activities that actually move your business forward. But I looked a little bit further into Hormozi's schedule, and I noticed a pattern that separates him from every other entrepreneur that I've analyzed. It's something called the consistency flywheel. You see, most people focus on optimizing individual days instead of building sustainable systems. They have some great days and some terrible days, creating an exhausting cycle of peaks and crashes. But when you implement the consistency flywheel, your brain predicts effort and slips into focus much easier. You see, your body runs on internal clocks that control much more than sleep. They're called circadian rhythms, and they govern things like hormone release, body temperature, alertness, and cognitive performance. And when your daily schedule is irregular, you create internal chaos that makes sustained performance much harder. Researchers studied thousands and thousands of people and discovered that going to bed and waking up at the same time had a much more significant impact for daytime alertness and performance than their total sleep time. And people who slept just 6 hours consistently significantly outperformed those who got 8 hours but at irregular times. Another research team at Harvard tracked people's exercise and meal timing, and they found that when these activities happened at the same times daily, people's reaction time and focus improved by up to 25%. Their entire nervous system operated more efficiently when it could predict what was coming next. And when you observe Hormozi's daily patterns, his days run like clockwork. Not because he's rigid, but because consistency creates automatic focus triggers. Same wake time, same work block, same training slots, same meals. This not only reduces decision load, but most importantly, keeps his mental state predictable for long hours of work. The way the consistency flywheel works is, first of all, you need to establish fixed sleep and wake times that you can maintain every single day, including weekends, for at least 80% or more of the time. Aim for a 9-hour sleep window to make sure you're getting enough REM and deep sleep, and to also compensate for a wake time during the night. Then make sure you exercise at the same time every day for, again, at least 80% of the time. This creates a natural energy spike that your body learns to expect. As a matter of fact, after just a few weeks of doing this, you'll feel naturally energized at this time without needing any caffeine or other stimulants. Next, you need to start your work blocks at the same times daily. If you begin deep work at 8 a.m., your brain will automatically start ramping up focus around 7:45 a.m. If you end work at 6 p.m., your mind will naturally start winding down as that time approaches. Finally, you need to eat your meals at consistent times daily. The reason for that is that your digestive system works on an internal circadian rhythm as well, meaning that after your body learns your eating patterns, it will optimize your digestion to be most efficient at those times. And when you deviate from that schedule, your digestion will be less efficient, will drain more of your energy, and you'll experience more brain fog and energy crashes. Now, at this point, I thought that I had every single strategy and system Hormozi uses to operate at peak performance consistently without burning out. But when I tracked what he does in the first hour of each day, I actually discovered that he ignores 90% of what productivity gurus recommend. You see, most people overcomplicate their mornings with elaborate rituals that take hours but don't actually improve performance. They journal, meditate, do breathing exercises, take cold plunges, do red light saunas, and then wonder why they feel scattered when it's time to do the work. The problem isn't that the activities I mentioned are bad. It's that they're not the highest return actions for the highest level of focus. You want the minimum effective dose that maximizes your brain's readiness for deep work. And what if I told you that there are 3 simple inputs that deliver disproportionate returns on your focus and energy? Sunlight, hydration, and movement. Andrew Huberman at Stanford studied how light affects the brain, and he discovered that just 10 minutes of early morning sunlight triggers a cascade of neurochemical changes that boost motivation and alertness for up to 8 hours. This single action sets up your entire day's energy cycle. Another research team led by Ganio studied the effects of dehydration on cognitive performance, and they found that even losing just 1 to 2% of your body's water, which by the way happens every single night when you go to bed, reduced memory and focus by 10 to 15%. But rehydration restored this performance within minutes. When I analyzed what Hormozi does every morning, I again noticed a pattern. He focuses on inputs that yield the biggest returns and ignores everything else. His principle is simplicity that scales. A few small wins that set your entire day's chemistry right. His approach is called the ROI routine, and the way it works is first you get 10 to 15 minutes of sunlight exposure within the first hour of waking. Now, this doesn't require the perfect sunrise. As a matter of fact, even cloudy outdoor light is significantly brighter than indoor lighting and will trigger the neurochemical response you need. Then, immediately after waking, you drink 500 to 750 ml of water with a pinch of high-quality sea salt or Himalayan salt or even electrolyte powder. Your brain is 75% water, and as we just saw, even mild dehydration that happens overnight significantly impairs your cognitive performance. And the electrolytes you add to your water help your cells actually absorb the water and use it effectively. And finally, within the first 30 minutes of waking, do about 20 to 30 minutes of moderate exercise. Now, this doesn't need to be an intense workout, and you can even do walking, stretching, yoga, or light calisthenics. Your main goal is to raise your body's temperature and activate your nervous system. And as a result, instead of spending 2 hours on elaborate morning rituals that make no sense and waste your time, you prime your brain for peak performance in under an hour. But the most fascinating thing I found when analyzing Hormozi's decision-making patterns was how he's eliminated an entire category of choices that drain most entrepreneurs. He's managed to build what's called the decision fatigue shield. You see, every small decision you make throughout the day depletes your mental energy. And most people don't realize that they actually make 35,000 decisions every single day, from what they wear to what to eat to which tasks to work on next. Now, each decision might seem insignificant in the moment, but they compound into serious cognitive drain. By afternoon, your brain is exhausted from constant choice making, leaving little to no energy for actual meaningful work. Think about it like this. You have to pay a certain amount of money for every task and decision you make. Your deep, important work that actually makes you money costs about $150. And in the morning, you wake up with $500 in your bank account. You wake up, you instantly spend $50 on deciding what to wear. You spend another $50 scrolling on your phone. You spend another $50 deciding what to eat. You spend another $50 deciding what to reply to your client. And by the time you actually have to do the important work, you don't have enough money to spend, meaning you're doing important things that require a lot of thinking, but your brain is not efficient and it's not doing it in the best way possible because you simply can't afford it. This happens because your prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for focus, creativity, and complex thinking, has a limited processing capacity. And when it's constantly occupied with trivial decisions, it simply cannot perform at full capacity on meaningful tasks. A researcher named Roy Baumeister gathered groups of people and had them make dozens of small decisions, choosing between different products, deciding on meal options, picking from various activities. By the end of the experiment, he found that these people showed 50% less persistence when given challenging tasks. And this happened because the mental fatigue accumulated from constant decision making had directly impaired their ability to focus and push through difficulty. Another researcher named Peter Goldweiser studied what happened when people pre-decided their actions. He had one group plan exactly how and when they would complete their tasks, while another group just set general goals. And he found that the pre-planning group completed their goals 90% more often, meaning when you eliminate the decision-making factor, execution becomes automatic. And when you look at how Hormozi operates, he pretty much does the exact same thing. He systematizes everything possible so that his brain never wastes energy on routine choices. Same wardrobe, same meals, the same pre-planned daily schedule. He treats his decision-making capacity like a finite resource that must be protected at all costs for high leverage thinking. And this system is called the decision fatigue shield. And the way you implement it is, first of all, you need to have a capture system for all tasks and ideas. Get a small notebook or use a simple app on your computer or your phone. The moment any task, idea, or commitment pops up into your head, you need to capture it immediately. And then every evening, you spend 10 minutes processing everything you captured for that day. For each item, you make 1 of 4 decisions. Do it now if it takes less than 2 minutes. Schedule it for a specific time tomorrow if it's important. Delegate it if someone else can handle it. And delete it if it's actually not necessary. And then for the tasks that you actually need to do, you categorize them based on admin or deep work, and then you place them at the appropriate section of your day, either for important focused work, which is the initial 4 to 6 hours of your day, or admin work, which is either going to be delegated or done later after those 4 to 6 hours. The next thing you need to do is to conduct a weekly time audit to identify low leverage activities that drain your mental energy. For 1 week, track how you spend your time using something like Rise. At the end of the week, you can open the app, go there, and see exactly where your time goes. Whether you're spending the majority of your time doing low leverage tasks, what needs to be delegated, and how to further optimize your time. And now that you know Alex Hormozi's endurance technique to work 12 plus hours a day, you also need to learn how to optimize your body's internal systems so you can sustain this level of performance without ever burning out. And there is a specific performance optimization protocol I've started using recently that combines Hormozi's endurance methods with hormonal optimization to unlock what I call superhuman mental stamina. So watch this video next, where I show you what it is, how it works, and how you can use it to maintain elite level energy and mental clarity for 12 plus hours while your competition crashes after just 4.